Everybody, Kenji here, founder of Bayfield Digital. We help local businesses get more Google reviews. This video is part 3 in a multi-part series around best practices around optimizing your Google reviews. This video today is all about what not to do. And this is actually really important because Google has really tightened up the rules on what is allowable and not allowable to do. And so these are some, not just best practices, but things that you have to be careful about not doing, because otherwise Google will start to kind of penalize listings and remove reviews if they violate their terms of service. So let's talk about that. First, let's talk about why reviews really matter. So Google reviews affect both who finds you as a business as well as who calls you. So on the left side, it affects your Google ranking and visibility. So what this means is based on how many reviews you have and the quality of your ratings, this will determine whether or not your business even shows up in the listing when somebody searches for, let's say, handyman near me or plumber near me or something like that, whether your business is shown up at the beginning or on a later page. And that's really important for visibility because in general, people who are at the top are going to get the calls and those who are on the second page don't get any calls whatsoever. And the second reason is about social proof and customer conversion. So what I mean by this is even if you do show up in the listing, there are going to be other providers that a customer can call. And so your reviews are going to provide the social proof as to whether you're going to get the call or your competitors will when they need a handyman or a provider, for example. And so what this means is this will significantly affect the number of organic leads you get from Google. So let me make that really simple. So getting more reviews and better reviews will lead to increased visibility in search by the Google algorithm. That will also lead to getting more customer calls inbound for you, which is free customers without having to pay for ads. So this is very important. Now, let's talk about some brief best practices, and then we're going to go into the what not to do. So in terms of the top best practices, having a high quantity of reviews, having very recent reviews, a high star rating, and responding to every review. Those are the main best practices there. Let's just look at a couple of examples very quickly. So looking at this business, you can see that they have a high number of reviews as well as high star rating. They are also receiving reviews on a consistent basis and responding to them right away. Now let's talk about the things not to do. Now this particular slide is one of the most important things to not to do. This is a very common practice in the industry called review gating or review filtering. And so what this means is you pre-screen customers by their sentiment and only send the happy ones, those who click on the green face, for example, a review link while routing the unhappy ones, the yellow and the red, to like an internal complaint form. This is a very common practice among agencies who work with small businesses because it's basically you get kind of stacking the deck. So the only reviews that actually make it to Google are the good ones, and the low reviews, the ones that would have been low reviews, you can handle internally. And this is expressly forbidden by Google, and they've really tightened up their enforcement on this. And so my strong suggestion for you is if you have a provider that is doing review gating, that is something that you should not be doing. So be very, very careful about this. Another one is you're not allowed to incentivize or give any kind of rewards for any reviews whatsoever. You're not allowed to offer discounts, gift cards, loyalty points, refunds, free merchandise or discounts on anything, or any kind of perk in exchange for a review. Again, this is very common practice and a lot of people do that, but that is not allowed. You can also not provide any kind of incentive to either revise or remove a negative review. So anything like that, any kind of influence on the review is expressly forbidden. Secondly is fake or incentivized reviews from insiders. So really pushing your owners and staff and family or anything like that to post on behalf of the business. That is also not allowed by Google. Reviews have to be based on real experience. So if you're asking someone to review your business that has no actual experience with it, they're inventing it or making it up or anything like that, that is also forbidden by Google. Buying reviews from a third-party service, that is not allowed. And then also slamming Google with a huge number of reviews really quickly. So if Google sees that, then they measure the review velocity of what you're getting. And if that is significantly above what the history is, they're going to remove those. And so when we send out review requests for our clients, this is why we have a very careful and slow drip process. So we're only sending a few reviews at a time, so that when the actual review requests at a time, so when those reviews come in, then Google does not see that as being slammed with fake reviews. Next is any kind of on-premises pressure. And now these are kind of new enforcement that Google announced as recently as March of this year. And so these are very new and very kind of real. So on-premises pressure. So if you're really pushing a customer while they're standing in your store or restaurant to leave a review while they're on site, for example, if you have a tablet at the front desk or a kiosk in the lobby or something, and it's like, hey, can you just leave us a review right now before you leave? Any of that kind of pressure is not allowed. Next is sharing device for review submission. So, for example, if you have an iPad on the kiosk and really asking everybody to review, Google is going to sense that same IP address is used for a lot of reviews, and that's going to signal them that these are probably spam reviews, and so that kind of violates this top one as well. And then also, if there are weak or newer reviewers, if they're accounts, right? So, there's some services that create a bunch of new accounts just to provide fake Google reviews, and that is also forbidden, and Google is paying attention to that. Now, also new, even more recently, in April of this year, are a couple of other updates that Google has provided. So number one is staff quotas, right? So if you have staff on hand, your workers and such, and you've really told them like, go get reviews, it's really important. If you have contests or bonuses tied to getting reviews, any of that is not acceptable. And then lastly, I think that's the last one, is directing that the reviewer to mention staff by name. So asking them to say, hey, can you please mention Joe's name in your review? Any of that is also not allowed by Google's terms. Now, this is hitting some sectors particularly hard because it's actually been very common practice, in automotive, healthcare, restaurants, like, hey, can you mention me as your server today? That would be really helpful for us to get a Google review and for me to get some visibility. This has been very common practice for years, and that is definitely not allowed by Google anymore. Now, so the obvious question is, how are they enforcing this? So Google is using a lot of technology, especially AI-driven technology, and they're even retroactively going back to look at reviews to see if anything was banned under their terms of service. So any review that was collected historically under what is now banned methods, they can review them even if those reviews were posted before that update took effect. And so in their most recent trust and safety report, Google said they removed 292 million reviews last year alone from reviews that violated their policy. And so there are clients that we see that have lost reviews that they previously had. And so it's really important that any of the techniques you use to gather reviews, it's very important that you do it properly, because otherwise Google is going to remove those reviews. Now, if anyone is interested in getting a free audit of your Google Business Profile, I'm more than happy to provide that. So we do what we call a Google Business Profile audit. Here is an example of what that looks like. And so we'll measure business on review count, star rating, and a number of other factors against industry benchmarks for your specific business category, right? So a restaurant is going to have a different, category than a handyman, for example. And so if you're interested in me providing a free audit of your Google Business Profile, I'm more than happy to do that. All you have to do is send me your Google Business Profile link. So the way to do that is you go to your Google Business Profile page, just the one that customers can see, and click on this share button here. And when you do that, it will pop up this window. All you have to do is just copy the link there and then just email it to me at kenji@bayfielddigital.com. And it only takes me a very short amount of time to turn that around. So I'm more than happy to email it back to you, and happy to discuss your specific situation. So, and again, if you're ready to start improving your local presence on Google, our company, Bayfield Digital, performs all of these services and optimizes all the best practices and avoids all of the things that are expressly banned by Google. We help local businesses get more reviews on Google. And again, why this is important, because getting more and better reviews on Google increases the visibility from the algorithm, and that's going to lead to more customer calls that you're going to receive without having to pay for ads. Thank you very much for your time.